Hello, everyone. Welcome to our class. I hope you're all doing well. And today, we will delve into the topic of agrarian reform.
I am Sailin Norian G. Pahayat, a third-year BEd student from Norsushaten. And today, I will be discussing an important topic that plays a major role in Philippine society and education, which is the agrarian reform in the Philippines. The agrarian reform is a government program that aims to improve the lives of farmers by giving them ownership of the land they cultivate. For many years, farmers in the Philippines worked on lands owned by wealthy landowners, and they paid rent and had little security. And this system caused poverty and inequality in rural areas. And because of this, the government created agrarian reform to promote social justice, economic development, and also fair distribution of land. So here are the learning objectives. By the end of this video, you should be able to explain and differentiate the key concepts, principles, and laws of agrarian reform such as land to the tiller, retention limit, just compensation, the RA 6657, RA 9700, and the PD or the Presidential Decree 27. Analyze and compare major agrarian reform laws and historical land policies by completing a comparative table. And lastly, demonstrate appreciation for the role of agrarian reform in promoting social justice and rural development by actively participating in a guided discussion. In this video, we will discuss agrarian reform is a government program aimed at redistributing agricultural lands to landless farmers and farm workers to promote social justice, rural development, and food security. It is anchored on the principle of land to the tiller, which seeks to eliminate absentee land ownership and empower those who actually cultivate the land. The lesson covers key concepts such as retention limits, just compensation, and land ownership instruments like emancipation patents and certificates of land ownership award or the CLOA. And it highlights major agrarian reform laws including RA 6657, which is the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law of 1988, and its extension RA 9700 or the CARPER, as well as earlier policies like Presidential Decree 27, which focus on rice and corn lands, and the historical background traces land ownership systems from the Spanish encomienda system, the American-era torrent system, and the post-war tenancy laws to modern reforms. In addition, the lesson emphasizes the roles of key stakeholders such as the Department of Agrarian Reform or DAR, the Land Bank of the Philippines, local government units or the LGUs, the non-government organizations, and farmers' organizations in ensuring successful land distribution, providing support services, and protecting farmers' rights. So let's proceed to the agrarian reform. Agrarian reform is a comprehensive government effort to redistribute agricultural land from large landowners to landless farmers. However, it is not only about giving land. It also includes providing farmers with training, giving access to credit or loans, building irrigation systems, and also offering farm tools and technology. So the main goal of this is to improve farm productivity and ensure farmers can live decent lives.
For instance, in a classroom discussion, the teacher might compare agrarian reform to sharing ownership of a communal school garden among students who previously had no plot of their own, allowing everyone to benefit equally from the harvest.
During the Spanish and American periods, large estates called haciendas were owned by a few families, and most Filipinos were tenants who worked the land but did not own it. So this created poverty social conflict, and also unequal wealth distribution. So the agrarian reform was introduced to correct this unfair system.
The retention limit refers to the maximum size of land that a landowner is allowed to keep. Any land beyond this limit is taken by the government and distributed to farmers. So the purpose of this is to prevent land monopoly, to ensure more people own land, and also to create equal opportunity. So as you can see in the example here, a landowner has 50 hectares and the retention limit is set at 5 hectares only. So the remaining 45 hectares will be distributed among the farmers. And I also have another example. So if a landowner owns 30 hectares and the retention limit is 5 hectares, so the owner keeps 5 hectares. And what will the remaining be? That is 25 hectares. So those 25 hectares will be distributed to the farmers. This allows many families to benefit instead of only one wealthy family.
Just compensation. So when we say just compensation, it is the fair payment given by the government to landowners whose land is acquired for agrarian reform. So this will ensure that landowners are not unfairly deprived. The process follows the law. So the value of the land is assessed based on the location, the productivity, and also the market value. The Land Bank of the Philippines usually handles these payments.
For instance, if a farmer receives a Certificate of Land Ownership Award or the CLOA for a hectare of land, the government must pay the original landowner an amount equivalent to the land's fair market value.
And we have the Emancipation Patent or the EP and CLOA. So these are legal documents proving land ownership by farmers. So the Emancipation Patent, this was issued during the Marcos administration under the Presidential Decree 27. It applied mainly to the rice lands and the corn lands. And it officially freed tenant farmers from paying rent. The CLOA or the Certificate of Land Ownership Award, it was issued under CARP. So it gives farmers ownership of various agricultural lands. So with these documents, the farmers can use land as collateral for loans, improve farms, and also pass land to their children. So when we say the land to the tiller, this is the guiding principle of agrarian reform. It means that the person who cultivates the land should own it. So this promotes hard work, responsibility, and also productivity. When the farmers own land, they are more motivated to take care of it and improve production.
So this law enacted during President Corazon Aquino's administration. So this is the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program. It covered republic and private agricultural lands, distribution to farmers, and also support services. Just like the example on this slide. Farmers in the Central Luzon received CLOAs under CARL, allowing them to cultivate rice without paying rent to the landowners. This law extended the CARP. So the Republic Act 9700 or the CARPER strengthened the land distribution, farmer support, and also legal protections. Just like the example here on the screen. A farmer in Mindoro facing a legal challenge to his CLOA benefited from CARPER's provisions for legal support and mediation. So next is the Presidential Decree 27. This was during the 1972. So the focus here is on rice and corn lands. They gave ownership to tenant farmers. And this is the first major agrarian reform effort. So just like the example on the screen, A rice tenant in Nueva Ecija in the 1970s was able to obtain full ownership of the land he had been cultivating for years under the Presidential Decree number 27. Another is the Sagip-Saka Act, the Republic Act number 11-321. So this law helps the farmers by providing financial aid, improving market access, and also reducing middlemen. So just like for example, the farmers in Bukidnon received government aid to purchase farm equipment and access cooperative markets under this law. Class. During the Spanish period, land was controlled by Spaniards through the encomienda system. So the Spaniards were given control over land and the people living on it. The Filipino farmers worked the land but did not own it, so they had to give taxes, crops, or labor to Spanish officials. The big idea on this is that this created land inequality very early in the Philippine history. As you can see in the example, so the farmers in Luzon gave part of their rice harvest to Spaniards and were left with a very little. So let's talk about the torrent system during the American period. So when the Americans came, they introduced the torrent system. So this system registered land legally, and it helped prevent land disputes. And it also became the basis of today's land titles. So this system helped clarify who legally owns land. For example, a landowner in Iloilo could officially register land under his name. Let's delve into the Rice Share Tenancy Act of 1933. So this law was made to protect tenant farmers, and it limited how much of the harvest landlords could take, and it also gave tenants better shares of the crops. So this is the first attempt to make farming fairer. For instance, a farmer who used to give 70% of rice to the landlord could now keep more. Now, let's talk about the two important post-war laws, which are the Agricultural Tenancy Act of 1954 and also the Land Reform Act of 1955. So in the Agricultural Tenancy Act of 1954, it protected farmers from unjust eviction, and it also improved income sharing. And for the Land Reform Act of 1955, it aimed to distribute public agricultural land, and it also tried to reduce landlessness. So the big idea of this is that the government started to actively intervene to help our farmers. Now, let us proceed to the key personalities and agencies of agrarian reform. When we say the Department of Agrarian Reform or DAR, this is the main agency in charge of agrarian reform. This distributes land and issues to CLOAs. The Land Bank of the Philippines pays landowners, and it also provides loans to farmers. So these agencies make agrarian reform possible in practice. Let's talk about the local government units or the LGUs. So they help identify beneficiaries, and they also resolve land conflicts. Non-governmental organizations. They provide training and legal help, and they also protect farmers' rights. And we have also the farmers' organizations and cooperatives. So they help farmers sell products, and they also help increase bargaining power. We also have Diosdado Macapagal, who promoted land reform in the 1960s, focused on social justice. And Ramon Magsaysay, which he supported tenant farmers and improved rural livelihoods. So leadership matters in land reform success. So here are the current challenges in agrarian reform. First, we have the delays in land distribution and landowner compensation. Although laws exist, land distribution is often delayed because of long legal procedures, court cases filed by landowners, and slow government processes. Many farmers wait years before receiving the land awarded to them. Next is land grabbing, which happens when powerful individuals or corporations illegally take control of agricultural land or use legal loopholes to avoid land redistribution. This is what happens after land is distributed. Many farmers fail to improve their living conditions because they lack support services such as irrigation, farm tools, seeds, fertilizers, credit, and agricultural training. Without this, farmers cannot increase productivity, which results in continued rural poverty. Some farmers are forced to lease or sell their land back to rich landowners, recreating the same inequality that agrarian reform was meant to solve. So when farmers gain secure access to land, they become more motivated to work and invest in farming because they are no longer afraid of eviction. Land ownership encourages farmers to adopt better farming methods, improve soil quality, and increase crop production. As a result, agricultural productivity improves, leading to higher incomes for the farmers. Increased income from farming helps reduce poverty in rural areas and allows families to afford basic needs such as education, healthcare, and housing. The agrarian reform also strengthens rural communities by encouraging cooperation through farmers' organizations and cooperatives. So these groups help farmers share resources, support one another, and also gain better bargaining power in the market. Now let's move to the comparative perspective on agrarian reform. So as you can see on this slide, this represents a comparison of agrarian reform programs in other countries. As you can see, there are Vietnam and South Korea shown as successful examples because their government strongly supported land redistribution and provided farmers with sufficient assistance. So in contrast, Brazil and Mexico experienced mixed results due to weak implementation and unequal land distribution. So this teaches that agrarian reform is most effective when there is strong political will and consistent government support. As you can see from this slide, this shows the development of agrarian reform over time. It traces land inequality back to the Spanish period, explains improvements in land registration during the American period, and highlights post-war tenancy laws that aimed to protect farmers. And it also includes later reforms such as CARP and CARPER, showing that agrarian reform has evolved through different administrations and remains an ongoing process. And this is the continuation of the previous slide. As you can see on the table, it focuses on current government efforts to strengthen agrarian reform. Programs such as CARP, CARPER, and other agricultural support initiatives aim to complete land distribution and improve farmers' productivity. So the slide emphasizes that agrarian reform continues to adapt in response to past challenges and changing economic conditions. And this is the last part of the previous table. As you can see, it explains why agrarian reform remains important today. It highlights its role in promoting social justice, reducing inequality, empowering farmers, and supporting national development. Despite the challenges discussed in earlier slides, agrarian reform is presented as a necessary policy for creating a more fair and inclusive society.
So take a pause and reflect. How do you think land ownership affects a farmer's motivation and quality of life? To conclude, agrarian reform is a vital program that aims to correct land inequality and improve farmers' lives. It supports social justice, promotes agricultural development, and strengthens the rural economy. So by understanding agrarian reform, future teachers can better educate students about Philippine history, society, and also development. So thank you for watching. Remember, Learning about topics like agrarian reform is not just about for passing exams. It's about understanding our history, our society, and how we can make a difference. So, keep studying, stay curious, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Every step you take toward learning brings you closer to becoming a knowledgeable and responsible teacher. Keep practicing these concepts, and I'm sure you'll do great on the lab and in the future classroom.